You step onto a ferry. You don't think about it. You find a seat, you look at your phone, and 40 minutes later you're on the other side of the water. It feels like nothing. It feels like it has always been this easy. But the real answer is far stranger. Long before writing, long before farming, long before anyone had a word for ocean, someone stood on a shoreline and looked at open water and decided to go anyway. No maps, no compass, no idea what was on the other side, or if anything was. Why would anyone do that? Your instinct might say boats came late. Surely a raft is a simple thing, but crossing real water, water where you lose sight of land, feels like a modern trick, something that needed metal tools and careful planning. That instinct is wrong. Wrong by tens of thousands of years. On the island of Flores, in what is now Indonesia, archaeologists found stone tools far older than they expected. Not thousands of years old, roughly 1,000,000 years old. The problem is that Flores has always been an island, separated from the mainland by a deep water channel called the Lombok Strait. Even during the ice ages when sea levels dropped and land bridges appeared almost everywhere else on Earth, this channel never closed, so something crossed it anyway. Something without modern boats. Something without language as you would recognize it. The leading suspect is Homo erectus, a human ancestor with a brain about 2/3 the size of yours. Not you. Not even close to you. And yet the evidence says members of this species, or something very like them, made it across open water to Flores. Not once, but repeatedly, over hundreds of thousands of years. Archaeologist Robert Bednarik tested this directly. He didn't just theorize about it. He built rafts using only tools and materials that would have existed 1,000,000 years ago. Bamboo, rattan, and simple stone-cutting implements, then attempted to cross the same strait his ancestors of study might have crossed. His team succeeded, carried partly by current, partly by human effort, proving the crossing was physically possible without anything you would call advanced technology. Not proof of exactly how it happened, but proof that it could have. So picture it, not a shipyard, not a plan. A world before language as you know it, where somebody or some small group found themselves floating. Maybe a storm swept a fallen tree mat out to sea with animals still clinging to it. Maybe a fire on a bamboo grove created a natural raft that never sank. Maybe someone was simply gathering food along a stream, kept lashing branches together out of habit, and never noticed how far the current carried them until the shore behind was gone. Here is the part that should unsettle you a little. Boats may not have been invented on purpose, not at first. Consider what floating actually requires from a brain. You have to notice that wood resists sinking. You have to notice that lashing multiple pieces together resists sinking longer. You have to hold an idea in your mind about a future state, a crossing that hasn't happened yet, and trust an object to carry your body somewhere you cannot yet see. That is not a small cognitive leap. That is imagination applied to physics hundreds of thousands of years before anyone wrote the word physics. Now fast forward, not to Flores, but to the Aegean Sea off the coast of modern Greece. Around 13,000 years ago, hunter-gatherers on the mainland were using a specific volcanic glass called obsidian. Obsidian makes blades sharper than steel when freshly broken, and it was prized everywhere it appeared in the ancient world. Researchers studying the chemical signature of this obsidian traced it back to a single source. The island of Melos, sitting more than 100 kilometers out into open sea, invisible from the mainland coast on most days. That means someone paddled out past the horizon, into water where the land behind them had vanished, and the land ahead of them hadn't yet appeared, based purely on rumor, memory, or hope that something was out there. They did this before agriculture, before pottery, before the wheel. And they did it again and again because the trade in this obsidian continued for thousands of years, meaning the route wasn't a lucky accident. It was known. It was repeated. It was, in its own primitive way, a shipping lane. Around the same era, on the island of Cyprus, archaeologist Alan Simmons uncovered something equally strange. Evidence that early settlers didn't just cross to Cyprus themselves, they brought animals with them. Deer, cattle, pigs, on boats. Across open Mediterranean water roughly 12,000 years ago. Ask yourself what that takes. Restraining a full-grown animal on an unstable raft or dugout, keeping it calm during hours or days at sea, feeding it, and hoping it survives the crossing as well as you do. This wasn't survival. This was planning for a future on the other side, before anyone had confirmed that future existed. Why go through all of that? Why risk your one body, your one life, on a strip of water that might have nothing but more water beyond it? Some researchers point to something deceptively simple: curiosity outweighing fear, wired directly into your ancestors' brains through natural selection. The individuals who never wondered what was past the horizon, who stayed put, who avoided the risk entirely, left fewer descendants in the long run than the ones who occasionally took the leap and found new coastlines, new resources, new territory free of the competition they'd left behind. Archaeologist John Erlandson has argued that coastlines themselves acted like highways for early humans, food-rich, easy to follow, and constantly tempting people farther along the shore and eventually out onto the water itself. He called it informally a kelp highway, a route of rich marine ecosystems that pulled migrating humans along coasts and eventually across straits, all without a single written map. Notice what's happening here. The people who built the first boats weren't engineers in a workshop. They were driven by hunger, by curiosity, by the raw fact that resources ran out on one side of a channel and might not on the other. The boat wasn't the goal. The boat was a byproduct of wanting something on the far shore badly enough to risk drowning to get it. This still might not feel true to you, because your relationship to water today looks nothing like theirs. You've probably never had to guess whether crossing a strait would kill you. You board a ferry, you fly over an ocean, you drive across a bridge without ever registering the water beneath you as a threat. But that ease was built by tens of thousands of years of trial, failure, and repetition, most of which left no trace at all. Because most rafts don't survive to be found by archaeologists, what you're left with is only the evidence of success. The failures are invisible, sitting on ocean floors, unrecorded, unmourned, erased entirely from the story. That should change how you think about every boat you've ever stepped onto. It is not a modern convenience layered on top of an ancient void. It is the end product of one of the oldest continuous experiments your species has ever run, an experiment that began with a hominin on a beach 1,000,000 years ago, staring at moving water and somehow deciding that floating on top of it, rather than staying still, was worth the risk. There's a strange symmetry in this if you look closely. The instinct that first pushed a nearly mindless ancestor onto a bamboo raft is the same instinct still humming underneath you every time you feel restless in a place you know too well. The same neural itch that made someone lash branches together 300,000 years ago is what makes you want to leave your hometown, book the flight, take the job overseas, move to a city you've never seen. You call it wanderlust. Ancient biology would just call it working as designed. Even the fear makes sense through this lens. Every hesitation you feel standing at the edge of something unknown, a new job, a new relationship, a move to a different country, is an echo of standing at the edge of water that might drown you. Your ancestors who felt no fear at all often died before passing on their genes. Your ancestors who felt fear and pushed through it anyway are the ones you descend from. You are the product of exactly the right amount of hesitation, followed by exactly enough courage to go anyway. So here's what actually happened, stripped of everything mythical. Somewhere between 1,000,000 and 20,000 years ago, hunger and curiosity built the first boat by accident, refined it by repetition, and carried it across straits no one could see the other side of. Not because it was safe, not because there was a plan, but because staying still was, in the end, more dangerous than the water. Tonight, when you cross a bridge or watch a plane trace a line across the sky or scroll past a photo of someone's ocean vacation, remember what that ease is standing on top of. It isn't nothing. It's the accumulated risk of every ancestor who looked at water and decided that the unknown side was worth reaching. And somewhere in you, quietly, that same decision is still being made.